All right, hi everybody. Welcome to Daily Bell Ringer Now. Again, this is my little live stream thing that I've been kind of trying to do here since the beginning of the year, trying to bring resources for teachers to be able to use, ideas for teaching history, things like that here on the Daily Bell Ringer Now. So if you're with us now, I appreciate you jumping on here and joining us. And tonight, I'm going to be doing something, I guess, a little bit different than before. I'm going to be talking about, what's coming up with the Daily Bell Ringer. And honestly, since it's summer, I am a teacher myself. So since it's summertime, I'm in my summer mode right now. So I'm kind of relaxing, and of course I have some trips here planned coming up. And so on these trips coming up, of course, I'm going to be going to some different historic sites. And I guess I'll get more into it later on, but of course growing up, it was always a thing when we would go on vacation that we would go to historic sites and everything. And so what I wanted to talk about tonight is, some historic sites I'm going to be going to, maybe some ideas of ways that you could go to historic sites and be able to teach there, or if you got children, maybe what you could do with them, or maybe if you're homeschooling, what you could be doing at some of these historic sites when you go on a vacation. So to help me out here tonight with this is actually the inspiration for a lot of what I do with history. One of the big reasons I'm such a big history nerd is because of my own brother, who honestly is far more intelligent about history than I am, and a lot of what I know about history comes from him. And so I guess I'll bring him on here. This is my brother, Jason Bruning. I guess I'll let him introduce himself here.
Yes, I'm Jason Bruning. Jared is the Daily Bell Ringer. I'm the routine ding-a-ling. So that's my dad joke for today. All right. So Father's Day weekend, got to get a dad joke in.
Yeah. So I guess if we can get those out of the way here to begin with, so that way we're not, the whole night isn't just going to be one dad joke after another tonight. But anyway, so I guess what I wanted to talk about, I guess first thing here is, of course, us being brothers, us both being history nerds. I guess, Jason, if you want to talk about, when we were kids, what you kind of remember of when we would go on vacation, and what would Dad take us to go do, things like that.
Well, our dad was great. We had a wonderful father. He passed away now. Gosh, it'll be 13 years. Later this summer, but we had a great childhood growing up. Mom and Dad were great, but whenever we went on vacation, that was one of the things. And now we, as adults, we kind of realized it partly had to do with probably Dad was a little cheap, but he would take us to national parks, things that you could get into for free or a very low fee, and so yes, we hit a lot of Civil War battlefields as a kid. When we were kids, we went to Shiloh, Vicksburg, Gettysburg. I can remember. What are we leaving out? Of course, we grew up.
What was the one? There was one in Louisiana. What was the one in Louisiana that he took us to? I think it was a state historic site. Was it the Battle of Mansfield? I think
that was just you. I didn't get to go that time.
Oh, you didn't get to go on that one. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. I mean, we hit a lot of the big historic sites as kids. Didn't we end up going to Lincoln's Home and things like that?
Yes, that's true. We went to Lincoln's Home. We went to, oh gosh, how many people's tombs do we went to Canton, Ohio, to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and there's a president buried up there. Who is that? Who is that? Oh gosh, we should. We're supposed to be history experts. We should know this. Oh,
yeah, we should know this.
Oh, who is that buried in Canton?
I remember that too. It's not Hayes,
McKinley?
Is it? Hold on, I'll look it up here. Let me look.
Okay,
that's the great thing about
if only there was some sort of worldwide web of information, we could get this at a drop of a hat. But was it McKinley? I thought it was McKinley, maybe, but I might be wrong. But I remember going to that tomb. We went to Grant's home in Galena. In Galena, Illinois.
William McKinley is buried. Yeah, you're right. William McKinley is buried in Canton.
All right.
So
my mind remember better than I've given it credit for.
We went to.
Go ahead.
Well, a lot of Civil War stuff. I mean, a lot of Civil War stuff was what we went to, and of course, that's kind of what got us into history. I know we took a trip to D.C. as a kid, and as a kid,
when we lived out west
for
a short period of time, we went to the stuff out west, that you did last summer, Mount Rushmore,
like Scotts Bluff,
Chimney Hill, Scotts Bluff,
Yeah, Chimney Rock, that stuff. Yeah, but I guess I just remember as a kid, what I was 9, 10 years old. I didn't know what I was looking at exactly. And,
Right.
and to me, I have children of my own that I would love to take to some of these places. And I do take them to some of these places. And I try to explain to them everything that happened here and give them some background knowledge. But, honestly, that's one thing that I've always thought some of my videos might help out with, like Daily Bellringer videos might help out with if you're going to a historic site and your kids don't know what in the world you're going to go see, say, hey, let's watch a quick little Daily Bellringer video on our phone, and before we go into the park or whatever. I mean, I know they have an informative video there, probably in the museum and everything, but if you just want a
those
quick
are
little
usually like half an hour long or 45 minutes long, and those videos are meant for an introduction to people who don't know anything about it, and also to entertain those that are very well knowledgeable about the place. So it's kind of nice that your videos are really more for this is a concise, short lesson on this exact site or historic event or person. So yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, so a very, very brief summary. So who knows, maybe you might use some of the Bellringer videos for something like that if you're going to some of these historic sites. But as Jason and I were saying, we've been to a lot of historic sites, and honestly, for me, and I don't know how Jason feels about this, but for me as a teacher, I get worn down throughout the school year, and by the end of the school year, it's like I need something to re-energize myself. And yeah, it's like it's fun going to the beach, it's fun going to Disney World, it's fun going to these places, which are great. But for me as a history teacher, like going to those historic sites is what really gets me like kind of jazzed up again to teach history. I know a few years ago, Jason and I, we went down to Andersonville in Georgia, the Andersonville Prison, and that was something like when I came back to teach the next year, I remember having so much more I could share about Andersonville with my students when we got to the Civil War, and how excited I was to talk about it now that I could actually visualize exactly what it was like there, the size of everything, and where everything was laid out. So going to these historic sites,
like
go ahead.
Standing there in that location and seeing the same thing that the participants saw that day. I mean, just like here in a month, we're going to be at the Battle of Vicksburg, at the Vicksburg National Battlefield, and I think there's a road there called the Graveyard Road that was called that because there was a graveyard on it prior to the battle happening. So it was called the Graveyard Road, but the Confederacy set up a fort. It was called the Stockade Redan, and it's still there. I mean, it's an earthen works. But when you stand there and you realize the Union Army had to come down this road, and you look and go, gosh, if me and 50 other guys had rifles, there's not a living soul that's going to get down that road. And you think it, but yet those Union soldiers made it. And you can read about it, you can read the accounts, but until you see it with your own eyes and go, how did anybody make it out of this thing alive? It is a great experience.
Absolutely, if you can get to a historic site, and you're reminding me again. I hope this whole segment doesn't just turn into us talking about trips that we've taken together.
Yeah.
But gosh, I mean, it's been 10 years ago. Remember, we went to Antietam together, and remember we basically walked the whole kind of northern end of the battlefield where the Dunker Church and Westwoods and the cornfield were at, and we walked all of it, and we walked right through the cornfield, and yeah, it was just. I wouldn't say it was an eerie feeling, but it was just an odd feeling that you got knowing that you're standing in the exact location where these immense events took place in our history.
Some of the most sacred ground of American soil you're walking across. You realize.
Yeah. So again, if you go ahead.
Oh, yeah, well, that same trip. Jared and I, we went to Washington, D.C. on a Sunday morning. We took the train. We were in Baltimore, and we took the train into D.C. It was about 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. It was the weirdest thing. We got to the World War II Memorial. National Memorial belongs to every single U.S. citizen. And for half an hour, you and I were there, and we were the only two people at that memorial. It was almost like we had reserved it for a private showing. And it's like, how many times in your life are you going to have a national monument all to yourself? It was so bizarre.
Yeah, that was cool that day, how we got up so early. And because even when we went to the Lincoln Memorial, it wasn't that crowded in there. Because I've taken several, junior high trips to D.C., and it's always packed.
Yeah.
when we're there. And so, yeah, that trip we took was really special that we got to do that. So, I guess, again, sorry, we're kind of having our own conversation here. But for those of you watching right now, if you have, like, what are some historic sites you've been to? What are some of the ones that you really loved going to, or ones that you felt were really inspirational to you, or just really, made you come to grips with some of the major events that happened in our past? Because, again, there's several tragic places we can visit as well, at these historic sites. So, in the comments, if you got some historic places you've been to, or maybe some that you're planning on going to, feel free to put in the comments, what are some places you're thinking about going to, or places that you've been in the past. But I guess what we're going to talk about here is, I guess I'm kind of transitioning here to what's going to be coming up here with the Daily Bell Ringer. Of course, like I said, it's summertime, we're going to be taking vacations, and we try to intersperse fun with also having some historic sites. Now, to me, the historic sites are the main attraction. I'm going to have fun at the historic site, but I know my kids aren't going to have as much fun. But what are some of the sites we're going to be going to? So I guess here, to start off with, I'm going to be going to a couple places without you, Jason. I'm going to be going to Nashville, Tennessee here soon. And actually, I'm going to go just south of there, and there's a thing called the Battle of Stones River that took place in late 1862, right into 1863. Honestly, on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day was basically when that battle was taking place, 1862 to 1863. So I'm going to be going to that battlefield, and hopefully be making a Daily Bell Ringer video from on site, showing some of the stuff that happened there at the Battle of Stones River. So that's one site I'm going to be going on location to here shortly. But then also, a lot of people aren't aware of this. I don't know why nobody knows about this, but in Nashville, Tennessee, they actually have a full-size replica of the Parthenon in Nashville, Tennessee. And I forget the whole story behind it. It was built back in the 1920s because, they always said that Nashville was the center of arts and culture for the South. Yeah, it's the Athens of the South. And so they built this Parthenon that, it has a 40-foot tall statue of Athena inside of it and everything. And so one new thing I'm going to be doing here, and I think I might have talked about this before on another Daily Bell Ringer Now, is I've had a number of teachers contact me asking me to start making some world history videos. And honestly, it's been years since I taught world history, but actually this next year I'm going to be teaching a world history class again. And so I'm going to go and start trying to make a few world history videos. So I'm going to make a few videos about ancient Greece. There at the Parthenon in Nashville coming up. I think I'm going to make one about the city-states of ancient Greece, the Parthenon itself, just simply what was the original building, how did it get constructed, all that, and then also about the birth of democracy in Athens. So I guess real quickly, Jason, I don't know if I told you this joke before, since we were doing dad jokes before. Sometimes I'm talking about ancient history here. Do you know why the ancient Athenians didn't wake up until noon?
Why did the ancient Athenians not wake up until noon?
Because dawn is tough on Greece. So, too, if you're in the comments and you really hated that joke, you can make a comment about it, or if you have another history dad joke for us, put it in the comments there. But anyway, I told my kids that joke, and they don't get it because, of course, they're not up on all the advertising because they watch.
You know why Abraham Lincoln kept getting his mail late? Because it kept.
I don't know. Why did Abraham Lincoln keep getting his mail late?
Because it kept getting sent to his Gettysburg address.
All right. Okay, we'll stop now with the dad jokes, the history dad jokes. So anyway, that's a couple of sites we're going to be going to. But then, actually, Jason and I are going to be getting together, and we're going to be hitting another site. I guess, I don't know if, Jason, if you want to talk about that one, we're going to be going to we're going to be kind of going all over. I'm going to be in Tennessee for a little bit, then up in Missouri. We're going to head to Independence, right?
Independence, that's right. The home of our 33rd president, Harry S. Truman.
Yeah, and so actually, I've got a series of videos I'm doing right now about the presidents. I just got done doing Ulysses S. Grant. So I'm going to be jumping from number 18 to 33. I know that's kind of weird, but since we're going to be at the Truman, the Truman home and, the Truman Presidential Library, we thought it'd be a good time to do a video about Harry S. Truman. So,
my desk set that says.
Oh, there you go. He's
here.
got the the buck stops. Yes, the buck stops here. So maybe we'll talk about that in the bell ringer. I don't know. So, but I've never been there before. Jason's been there before. I guess what are some highlights of going to that site? What do you think are some cool things to see when you're at up there?
I don't know if it was actually the first presidential library built, but I know it's one of the early ones. But it's got a replica, life-size replica of the Oval Office. And ever since Truman had that built in his library, every other president that has a presidential library has to have a life-size replica of the Oval Office. In fact, I've heard a recording of Lyndon Johnson talking to somebody saying, "Hey, did you see what Truman's got? He's got a life-size replica of the Oval Office. When we get a library, I want that too." So you got to realize, those presidents, they've got those big egos. They want those big fancy things. So that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. Truman's such an interesting president. One of the accidental presidents, a guy that was vice president, was never actually supposed to be president, but ended up being faced with one of the most difficult decisions a president or any world leader has ever had to make, and that's the dropping of the atomic bomb. That's still a controversial decision here 75 years later, or we're almost at 75, I guess we are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I'm a big Truman fan. I read David McCullough's biography on Truman that he wrote back, I can't think, it was the early 90s. He wrote that, and it was such a good book. I remember I got to the part again. He passed away in 1972. I was born in 74. So Truman and I were never on this earth at the same time, but I get to the part where Truman passes away, and it ruined my day. I mean, I'd gotten so attached to the guy and reading David McCullough's book on him that when he died in the book, it upset me. But it's interesting, and Truman's an interesting guy, and I think you'll enjoy getting to go see the library. And I have not been in the house. The house has been closed because of COVID. They just recently opened it up back in April, so hopefully we'll get to tour that as well.
And, I think that's what's fascinating about learning more about history is so many times, like Truman, honestly, you probably aren't going to categorize him as one of the A-team presidents, I guess.
Right.
It's like you look at Roosevelt and you're like, oh, well, FDR, got us through the Depression, through most of World War II. He's the guy. And again, Truman was just kind of an afterthought. But what's fascinating when you learn about these guys is that you learn that there's amazing things that they did and the adversity they had to overcome. And sometimes you find out they weren't as good of people as what you thought they were, maybe. But again, that's what's fascinating about history is that you learn when you go to learn about these people, and especially a lot of these presidents I've been going back and learning about. I mean, I was talking to a teacher the other day that I was visiting their classroom, and she was making the comment that a lot of the Daily Bell Ringer videos, she's learning about a lot about presidents that she didn't know. And honestly, I'm learning a lot too as I'm researching these episodes and things, guys like Franklin Pierce and Zachary Taylor. It's like you don't really know, you know a little bit about them, but you don't really get a whole lot of detail about them. And so it's been kind of interesting to learn more. And so I'm excited to learn more about Truman and to find out, again, making one of the most difficult decisions ever made by a president. But again,
what's
right or
interesting
wrong,
too about that, he gets FDR passes away. He's sworn in April 12th, 1945. As the president right there at the White House. And one of the last guy that leaves the room is the Secretary of Defense, Henry Stimson. And he says to him, Mr. President, there's something we need to discuss with you tomorrow. Because the Manhattan Project was such a big secret, the Vice President of the United States did not know about it. So, Harry Truman did not even know about the atomic bomb prior to becoming president.
Wow. Huh. That's interesting. Well, again, we're going to learn a lot about it there. We're going to make a little video about Truman there, probably sharing some of the things we will have just learned or some things that I've just learned from Jason telling me about Truman and everything. So I'm excited for that. So we're going to be going there. That's going to be one of our big events. I've got some others some other locations I'm hoping we can get to. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to them or not. I don't know if I talked to you about Wilson's Creek or not. I don't know if we'll be able to get over there or not. We'll see. But again, we'll have to kind of play that one by ear. But anyway, I'm hoping to get to the Battle of Wilson's Creek near Springfield, Missouri, if we can. At least to get over there to get some cashew chicken, I hope. So I don't know
that's where Jared and I grew up, was Springfield, Missouri. And there's nothing like cashew chicken in Springfield, Missouri. I know that sounds weird, but if you're from that area, it's unique. And
Yeah, you know
That's
what we're
something
talking
you gotta
about.
get. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get cashew chicken.
It's like
in Springfield.
barbecue in Kansas City, the cashew chicken in Springfield, Missouri. You've got to get it.
Yeah. So, all right. So anyway, that's going to be one of the sites we're going to be going to. But then we'll be kind of taking a little bit of a break from being on the road. But then we're taking a really big one, which I'm super excited for this because I haven't been there in many, many years. But we're going to be heading down to Vicksburg, Mississippi, and going to, of course, the big national battlefield there at Vicksburg, of course, where Grant successfully takes control of the Mississippi River there in July of 1863. And so I'm really excited to get there. Jason has been there more recently than I have. And so he's going to be kind of like our tour guide a little bit on the trip. But we're hoping to make a couple different bell ringer videos there. I'm going to be kind of redoing my Vicksburg overview video, which will be basically the same video as I have now, just hopefully on location, that has some more sights and things that you can see in the background. But then too, of course, they have the USS Cairo there, which is a Union gunboat that sunk, and then of course they brought it back up from the bottom of the river and kind of reconstructed it. I'm hoping to do maybe a video about Civil War gunboats and about some of the naval warfare of the Civil War while we're there. I guess what are some big highlights at Vicksburg that you know of that you would like to go see?
Again, the Union, the northern states were incredibly proud of having won the Civil War and the contributions that their soldiers, from those states made. And, especially at Vicksburg, that was such a key victory. That was, you could argue that was the most important victory of the Civil War for the Union Army. But anyway, so, 30 years later, when they turn it into a park, and these veterans are getting older, they're starting to pass away, the states wanted to honor them, and the size of the monuments at Vicksburg they're bigger than any other Civil War battlefield. In fact, it's called America's Monument Park because there are so many monuments and the size of them. In fact, the Illinois Monument, which cost $250,000 in 1905, 1906 when they built it, that was 20% of the entire budget for the state of Illinois went to that monument. I mean, if you can imagine, spending 20% of the state's budget on, a statue, but it's not really a statue, it's a monument. But now today, if you were to build that same monument, it would cost $55 to $60 million. So, so it's just so impressive. It's so big. And, the names of every single, and I can't remember the exact number, 33,000 something soldiers from the state of Illinois, their names are on tablets inside of this monument. And that's just one. I mean, Iowa's got a big one there. The U.S. Navy's got a big one. It's just fantastic. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and of course, I'm in Illinois. Jason's in Alabama, but I know Illinois. That's like, many times in my class, I'll have students go and look up, like, do you have any family who fought in the Civil War? When we start studying it, they'll go back and I forget the National Park site. They have a good site that has a directory, basically, that you can put in your last name, and it will kind of generate all the people who had the same last name as you that fought in the war, and then we'll kind of piece it together and be like, well, here's somebody that was from Illinois. We'll kind of see like, okay, where did they sign up at? Was that in the area where we're at? And 9 times out of 10, they'll always be like they were there at Vicksburg. It's like just about every student I've had in class that has looked up stuff, it's usually always they were on the Vicksburg campaign. And so, again, Illinois has a huge tie there to Vicksburg and everything. So I'm really excited to get down there. I know it's going to be super, super hot. It's already getting hot right now. It's going to be probably hotter by the time we get down there to Vicksburg. But I'm really excited to be there. But one thing we're going to do, too, or at least try to do while we're there, we're going to see if this will work. Hopefully it'll work. Probably the next live stream. What were you going to say? Were you going to say something?
I got, okay, last one, I promise. Last dad joke.
Oh, he's another dad joke, okay.
The temperatures we have right now, I heard this week, the temperatures we have right now are like the Dallas Cowboys. They're peaking in the 90s.
All right. I don't know if anybody listening except for us will get that joke necessarily.
Okay.
But
okay.
I'm sure there's some Dallas Cowboy fans that all right, I haven't heard that one before.
Okay, that's bad.
Okay, so anyway,
while we're
going to be in Vicksburg.
You talked about when we went to these sites as a kid, you didn't always understand what was going on. Let me get into this because I've done homeschooling before, and they tell you learn your students. Be a student of your student. You know, that you got to figure out how they learn. And one way kids learn, you know, you got to get on their mindset. And I've bought these at the gift shops at the different battlefields. You know, when I explain, you know, there's cavalry soldiers, you know, that were on horseback. There were infantry soldiers, you know, that were on foot, that shot with rifles, and then there were artillery soldiers, okay? So, you know, I've bought those before, and my kids can see these, and they can play with them. You know, again, when you teach, you want to have them experience in as many senses as they can. So there's a way, you know, here's a toy they can look at and touch and play. And like here, also bought at a Civil War battlefield somewhere, here's the Civil War bullets, you know. So when I explain, this is what the men were getting hit with. You know, this is, you know, it would hit an arm, and it would break the arm, and this would break up and shatter. And if you got hit in the arm with one of these, you were probably going to lose this arm. You know,
what a wonderful story to share with young children. Yes.
Right. But it's a way of making them understand, because, you know, if you tell them, you know, bullets flying through the air, they don't understand. But when you show them, you know, imagine, you know, hundreds of these at one time flying towards you, you know, you kind of understand it better. And also, let's talk about
that's a great. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's a great suggestion. If you're going with like small children to these battlefields, is if you can, because again, I know I was a big G.I. Joe He-Man guy when I was a kid, and I still have, actually in my classroom, I still have some of my little Civil War toys that Dad let me get when we went to some of the battlefields. And, you know, honestly, that was something that, you know, once we got done with the battle, you know, we're going through the battlefield, I could play with my little Civil War soldiers and everything. So that's a great idea to, you know, to get them interested and to kind of explain and be like, okay, this is, you know, what the different divisions were of the military and how, you know, they would have fought the battle. So that's a great idea.
Do your best to put the story at their level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I even do that with my wife, you know, because, you know, she's not as interested in this stuff. So I try to find the human story, the human interest stories that, you know, that an individual soldier had, of they witnessed this or they saw this, and you know, that always, you know, brings it to life for you know, the older ones.
Yeah. And then were you going to make another comment?
I want to talk about the Junior Ranger program.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can talk about the Junior Ranger program.
Both Jared and I, our kids probably hate us for it because we make them do it every time we go to Nashville.
My kids have already said they're not doing the oath this year. They've already said like they think they're too cool.
In Vicksburg?
And they're 10 years old, 8 years old, and 6 years old. So it's like I told them, I was like, you're doing the oath. We're gonna do it. You know, I'll stand there with you and do it, whatever. But yeah. So go ahead.
But when you go to the visitor center, these national parks, you know, not just the war battlefields, but, you know, let's see, you went to Yellowstone last year. They've got one. They've got Junior Ranger programs, and they've got a book. And I had the booklet for Vicksburg, and it was with me, and I don't know what I did with it. But they give you a booklet, and the kids, you know, there's multiple activities to do at the different stops in the park. You don't have to do them all. You know, like for the younger kids, they only have to complete like maybe 4 or 6. The older kids have to complete like 8 or 12, something like that. But it's a way of going to each of the stops and encouraging you to get out and learn and find this stuff. And then when you get done, you take the booklet back to the ranger station or to the visitor center. And they give you a little oath, and you'll get a little badge. Here, I got some examples of my kids. Here's Corinth. Here's Chickamauga. Since we were speaking of Truman, here's the one my kids got at Truman's home. Okay. You know,
I'm going to have to tell
4 years ago.
Well, I'll have to tell my kids if they want to come with us, they can get another badge. They'll be excited if they get another badge.
And you always have a story, too. For instance, this is a silhouette of Harry Truman walking because he could walk from his home to his presidential library. So every single day you would see the president walking from his home to the presidential library. You know, you get those badges.
So growing up in Independence, Truman would walk from his home to his presidential librry as a young man, right? He would just walk right across to his presidential.
Yes, as a young man, he would just walk right across.
I'm kidding.
But anyway, you know, now Jared, I wish we could show your display. You put these up on a felt board that your kids have earned. I've just got a plastic bag I keep
Actually,
and honestly, I love these probably more than the kids do.
yeah, I'm the same way. In our basement, we have a big map of the United States, and we have little pins that we put in all the different places we've been together as a family. And then right next to it, we have this felt board that has all of their Junior Ranger badges on it. And honestly, this last year we went out to Yellowstone, hit Mount Rushmore, did a bunch of stuff out there, and it kind of filled up the board. So it's like I need to get a bigger board if we're going to keep on getting more badges. But honestly, I think what I've read about the Junior Ranger program, for nerds like us, they'll still let us do it, and we can still get a Junior Ranger badge no matter what age we are. At least that's what I thought I heard. You don't have to be like under the age of like 18 or something like that to do it. You can just go and be like, hey, can I get a Junior Ranger? I'm pretty sure you can do, at least, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll have somebody on here who is involved in the National Park Service that will tell me I'm spreading misinformation. But I thought it was like basically, as long as you're a kid at heart and you're excited to learn about the site, that if you go through all the stuff, that they'll give you your little plastic badge, like a Happy Meal trinket or whatever. But I mean, for me, it's fun. Yeah. And they always have like cool different badges at a lot of the parks. So go ahead.
And some of these sites even have trading cards that they'll give the kids that do the Junior Ranger program. This is the one my kids got at Vicksburg. Here's the guy you were just talking about, Grant. Yep. And
Yep.
There's the Shirley house. We'll get to see that. That's the only remaining structure on the battlefield that was there the day of when the battle happened, the siege.
And isn't that's kind of like right next to the Illinois Memorial, right?
That is very correct. You know your stuff. Yes, it is right next to the Illinois
I've been doing a little bit of like looking and like where is everything at there, so that way I kind of have a little bit of an idea when we go.
Well, that's another tip I always have when we go to these historic sites. There is so much stuff, not just the Daily Bell Ringer, but there's so much stuff on YouTube that you can kind of learn stuff before you're there. It's kind of like, they tell attorneys don't ever ask a question to a witness on the witness stand that you don't already know the answer to. We're the same way when we plan a trip to Disney, aren't we, Jared? We like to have it planned out. We know exactly what we're going to see. Now, we'll keep it secret from the kids, but we know what they're, we've already seen what is this ride or what does this, amusement have that, would my kids like it? But same thing with the Civil War battlefields. You kind of try to figure out prior to going, what is it I can tell them at this location that they are going to find interesting? Because clearly, they're not going to find order of battle interesting like I would. Or who was in command, da-da-da-da-da. But, again, those human interest stories or, hey, a guy was riding backwards on a horse here or something like that. Not that there's an example of a guy riding backwards on a horse I can think of, but something interesting that your kid, your student would find interesting. And also, for homeschoolers, those Junior Ranger badge booklets, you do that, you can count that as a homeschool day. So don't forget that.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think we were talking about that the other day, that you can actually count that as hours that they have completed something. Absolutely, yeah. If you're a homeschooling parent and you're going to some of these, or maybe going to be hitting some of these historic sites, and we're not saying necessarily go to these historic sites as your whole vacation. I mean, we're going down to Vicksburg and just going to kind of meet there and do some stuff. But then from there, my family's going on to the beach and everything. So, it's kind of like these are cool stops you can get hit, on your way to other places. But you were bringing up all the resources that are online. And there's a couple great, like I know that you've looked at Battlefield Trust. They have an amazing amount of resources that you can look at. They're just awesome. There's another really great one. I don't know if you've really looked at him too much. There's one called History Underground that he goes to a lot of like on site to places. They're a little bit longer videos, like half hour long or whatever sometimes. But they have some great resources too that kind of give you good walkthroughs of these sites and everything. So again, there's a lot of great resources out there if you just do a little bit of searching on YouTube. And you got those books too. Yeah.
A company called Travel Brains. They don't do this for every national park, but they're like Vicksburg's got one, Gettysburg. You've got my one from Antietam. I know Chickamauga, but this is great because they sell those at the gift shop, but you can also just get these on Amazon. But you've got some CDs you can listen to in the car while you're on the trip or going through the park. But then they've got pictures. Hey, there's that exact same picture of the Shirley House I just showed you. They've got pictures and stuff that back up what's on the CD. There's the Illinois Monument. We've been talking about it. Here it is right here. That's what it looks like.
You're just making me think of how much we're going to be driving our kids nuts here in the next week when we actually meet up together, and it's just going to be you with like 30 books and being like, well, look at this, here's this next, and our kids are going to be like,
I will take all those books and then I'll put Post-it notes of tour stop 4, tour stop 6. That I want to tell them this story. I need to show them this picture, and of course, when you've got a bunch of books about the same subject, lots of times you get the same picture. Well, maybe this painting, I've got a better picture or a better copy of this painting in another book, more than this one. So yes, it's almost like doing lesson planning, going to a site.
One thing that we're excited about when we go to Vicksburg is we're actually going to go with a guide through the park one day. And now I kind of feel bad for that guy. I don't know what he's going to in for when you're in the car with him and you're going to be like, well, what about this story? I read about this story. And I'm sure he's going to know stuff. I'm sure he's going to be extremely knowledgeable. Yeah. But I got a feeling he might end up having some questions and be like, what is this guy talking about? But anyway. All right, so we're super excited for this summer getting to go to some of these historic sites. Like I said, if you're watching it in the comments, if you want to put some places you're going to be going, things that you're going to be doing this summer as far as going to maybe some historic sites, I'd love to see where you're going. Two, if in the comments, if you want to make some suggestions, maybe for future bell ringers, maybe you go to a historic site and you look online, you're like, wait a second, Daily Bell Ringer doesn't have something about this. Send me a message and I'll look into it. Maybe I can make a video about one of those historic sites. But I really love going to the historic sites and doing the things. Unfortunately, again, being a teacher, I have to go the hottest time of the year. And so like next week, I know when I'm going to be down in Tennessee, hitting some of those sites, it's supposed to be like 102 degrees, which is going to be absolutely miserable. But I'm going to get the job done anyway because I'm excited about it. And I've already put a bunch of prep into getting it all done and everything. So Jason, did you have anything else you wanted to add here? Anything that we missed talking about?
No, but I do want to thank you for having me on. It's very nice to be on with you. And if you're watching this and you've made it to the end, I just want you to know you're better than my wife because I'm looking over here and I'm hearing her snore on the couch across from me. So she didn't make it to the end. So thank you very much.
Yeah, so actually, like I said, I think I mentioned this earlier. I can't remember if I mentioned it or not. We're going to try to do a live stream from Vicksburg. Hopefully, it'd be awesome if we could actually be on the battlefield and do a live stream. I'm going to see if we can maybe make that work somehow. So be keeping an eye on Daily Bell Ringer. I'll post something, ahead of time. Be like, hey, we're going to be like, it might be in the middle of the day one day here during the summer that you might look and see like, oh, Daily Bell Ringer's going live right now. And hopefully we're going to be on the battlefield. I'm crossing my fingers we can do one from live on the battlefield. But again, we'll see how that works because I'm not sure what the Wi-Fi situation is there and everything. So we'll see how we can make that work. But Jason, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking with me about historic sites and telling dad jokes. And
well, hey, happy Father's Day. You were a fantastic father to 3 kids. So happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to you as well. You're a fantastic father to 2 kids. So they'll all be seeing each other here soon when our families get together and everything for some of our summer trips. So, but anyway, with that, again, like I said, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, please email me. Remember, my email is thedailybellringer@gmail.com. So if you ever have any questions, anything like that, be sure to check out dailybellringer.com as well. Also, you might have noticed, sorry I keep rambling on here, you might have noticed that I'm wearing a Daily Bell Ringer hat. Actually, I do have a merchandise store that just open that offers some Daily Bell Ringer merchandise. So if you want to be the cool teacher that has a Daily Bell Ringer hat or sticker or sweatshirt or t-shirt or whatever, go to that site and it's linked there on at dailybellringer.com. You can go to that site and look at the merchandise. So anyway, again, Jason, thank you for joining me, and I'm going to sign off here and we will talk to everybody later. Thanks a lot.